everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Penny. I am a master esthetician in Portland, Oregon, and I'm excited that you're here with me today because it's time for the Friday Q&A. This is the video that I'm doing every single Friday where I try and answer and address any of your comments, as many as I can in this video and as well as I can. So if you're new here, I hope that you will subscribe and I hope that you'll tap the bell so that you guys know when I put out other videos. I am really trying to put videos out Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and this one on Friday. But I would love it if you guys would tap that bell because then you know exactly when videos come out. So let's get right into this. We've got some great topics to cover today. We're going to talk a lot about microneedling, of course. I always have microneedling questions. We'll talk a little bit about PRP and PRF. We are also going to talk about hyaluronic acid. I'm going to give you today a month in a glance of a microneedling schedule, along with in that month when you can start doing some other things like, nano needling and cosmetic needling and LED and all the serums and the products that you can reintroduce on what days. So that should be really helpful for you guys. I want to start out with a comment/question about PRP. This one is actually from Alexandra Lebrec. We got into a little bit of a conversation in the comment section, and she was talking about how she's done some microneedling, but recently, one time she did microneedling with PRP. She loved the results. She feels like it looks really, really good. And she was wondering about the difference between PRP and PRF. Now, I want to preface this with saying that I am not the aficionado on PRP or PRF, but at the office where I work, the doctor that I work with, she does use PRF and she uses it with microneedling, and she also uses it as an injection for under the eyes and the scalp, various things. So my plan, if there is interest, is to do a video with her talking all about PRP and PRF. But I thought in a nutshell, I would at least tell you what I know about PRP, and that is that it is platelet-rich plasma. That's what PRP stands for. First, you need to know what a platelet is. A platelet is, this is going to be real rudimentary, guys. It comes from your bone marrow. That's where they're produced. And once it's in circulation in your body, its function is to coagulate your blood and also to kind of kick off the wound healing process. Now, these platelets contain these little packages, if you will, of growth factors. Those growth factors are inactive until they get to the wound site. Once they get to the wound site, they're kicked into gear and they're activated, and they go into this cascading kind of wound healing process where they start doing all of this good stuff for the wound. Where that comes into play with microneedling is essentially a wound. We are creating this sort of wound, causing the body to, really kick off that wound healing process, and in turn generate some collagen. That's what we're trying to do in a nutshell with microneedling. Now, PRP was kind of a big deal for a while. It was really hyped up and that kind of thing. And it started in the 70s with open heart surgery because it's able to coagulate the blood. So they were using it to help with blood loss. Then, of course, like all things, they noticed that there was regenerative properties and all of this stuff. And so that's how it kind of fell into, over the years into things like microneedling and injections and stuff like that. Okay, so the problem with PRP, in my understanding, is that a lot of times those little packages of growth factors, a lot of them are pro-inflammation. They are inflammatory. And from everything that I've ever studied and what I understand about inflammation is it is necessary, of course, in wound healing to a certain extent. But at a certain point, pro-inflammation becomes pro-aging. So you have to be really careful with PRP because in excess, certain growth factors cause excessive inflammation, which in the long run is really aging. Now, I want to read to you an excerpt from the book Dermal Needling because this analogy has stuck with me forever and I don't want to misrepresent it by trying to just tell you guys, but it has to do with when you think you see results. For example, when you needle too often with a 0.5 or greater, you want to do it once a week and you say, but I'm seeing great results. Well, I really believe that what you're seeing is inflammation and edema. And there's this fantastic analogy, and I'm going to read it to you right now. It is from the book Dermal Needling, which I cannot recommend enough. If you guys are really serious about microneedling and even cosmetic needling and just learning a lot more about the skin, this book, Dermal Needling by Setterfield, is seriously one of the best resources I have ever had for skin. It's just amazing. And you learn a lot more about your skin and about processes and all kinds of stuff than just about needling. It's such a wealth of information. But the analogy that I want to read you and I want you to think about is to compare what we just talked about with a tan. This says, compare this with a tan. The appearance may be attractive initially, but the consequences down the road are negative with premature aging and even skin cancer. Okay, so think about that. If you're needling with too deep of a depth too often, or you're using PRP and you think you're seeing great results, what you might be seeing is inflammation and edema, and that may look aesthetically pleasing to you in the moment, but in, over a long period of time, that actually may cause you to age more quickly, or in 15 years, you may experience more aging than you would have had you used things that were anti-inflammatory or had you not needled that often. That is why I'm always telling people it is a better idea to medically needle only once a month or further apart, not to needle too often. Even the people that do that say, hey, I'm seeing great results, I really truly believe that you're seeing edema and inflammation. And with the PRP, when you say you saw great results, my first reaction when I read that, before I really revisited the book and really kind of thought, am I right about that? My first reaction was, you're seeing inflammation and edema from PRP. I actually do not think that PRP is that great to be used with microneedling. I just don't. When you do PRP, you draw blood. You get blood drawn from your body, and that is it's into a little test tube. That test tube gets put into a centrifuge. That centrifuge spins out that blood, and it separates the cells. The layer that's in the middle there, it's a very little tiny layer. That is what has to be extracted with a needle and then applied to your skin for microneedling or injected. Now with platelet-rich fibrin, same process of pulling your blood and it's in a test tube, and then it gets put into a centrifuge, and then it's actually spun a little bit slower, and the results are these cells are separated differently, and you have a fibrin layer at the top of that test tube. That is then extracted. It doesn't have to be mixed with some of the things that PRP actually has to be mixed with in order to activate those little packages that I was telling you about that cause all of that, the growth factors to be activated. PRF doesn't need that, so it's actually ready to go. And there's a downside to both. They have to be worked with extremely quickly because their consistency changes so that they are no longer good to work with real fast. Working with platelet-rich fibrin, PRF, it turns into like snot real fast. So you have to be able to put it down, microneedle with it quickly, and in order to get the benefit of all those fantastic growth factors going in there that seem to be anti-inflammatory when they are in the fibrin instead of being pro-inflammatory in the PRP. PRF, anti-inflammatory, PRP, pro-inflammatory. Now, that is my understanding, and I am planning to do a deep dive with Dr. Abraham. She's going to go into this much better than I could, but I thought, well, we'll just kind of scratch the surface, see if you guys are interested in hearing about this a little bit more. Okay, this question comes from Dr. Irene Richard, and she says, hi Penny, can you please give schedule chart for microneedling, chemical peel, retin-A, and LED mask? Of course I can. I am going to start a private Facebook group. I'm working on that right now. So as soon as I do that, I'll be able to do things that you guys can print, and we can have a little bit more interaction. We can share pictures, and I can put up charts and stuff like that. But for today, I'm going to put a graphic here somewhere and at least give you guys kind of a month at a glance. So basically you've got your day one, the day that you're going to medical needle. Okay. Now on that day, I just suggest not using any retin-A. I don't use any alpha hydroxy acids. I just go really nice to my skin the day that I medical needle. Okay, now I do medical needle with high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more too. But that is what I use for slip, and then that is what I apply after, just to kind of help with a little bit of that transepidermal water loss that can be experienced with microneedling. Now on days 1 through 5, which means the next day after you microneedle to day 5, that is when you can really start, putting all of your regular stuff back in. The very next day, you can introduce vitamin C, you can introduce kiwi seed oil, you can go ahead and use your snail mucin. This is new for me, but that is what I would do the very next day. You can definitely use beta glucan. You can use all of those things. The channels are closed the very next day, you guys. I do suggest being really, really gentle and nice to your skin the next day, because your skin's going to be still pink. It might feel sunburned. You are going to want to just baby your skin a little bit. Now, on the following days, you will see in this chart that you can use all kinds of stuff. I typically wait until day 3 before I start back in with my vitamin A, which is retin A, retinols, retinaldehydes, all of that stuff. I wait till about day 3. The reason why I say day 3 is I feel like it mitigates irritation. Okay, so then on days 6 through the next time that you microneedling, that is when you do your next medical microneedle, which would be 28 days later. You can start at day 7 with your cosmetic needling. You can reintroduce your nano needling. You can definitely be doing LED. You can introduce your alpha hydroxy acids. You can see in this little chart that I gave you, and you can pause and write this down, or hopefully print this or something, that you can reincorporate all of the normal things that you do. So it isn't as big of a mystery as it would appear. I know that it seems very, very confusing because there's lots of things that are good for you to use. All of the things that are listed in this chart, you don't need all of them. These are just the things that you can use. So don't be confused by how many things there are. Just look and see what you use and where it fits in this chart. And I usually wait until probably day 3-ish to reintroduce my alpha hydroxy acids. Usually days 1 through 5, that would be the day after you microneedle through day 5. That's actually when you can experience dryness, tightness. You can experience flaking. You can definitely experience kind of like a sunburny effect for a few days. So that's why I usually wait at least till day 3 before I start back in with my serious actives like retin A and alpha hydroxy acids. I try to pamper my skin for the 3 days following, and mostly that is because I want to try to just keep my barrier in the best condition as I can after I just microneedled it, So I really feel like right after you microneedle, that's when you want to be the nicest to your skin. Okay, so moving on, I hope that that's helpful for you guys. Okay, so this question is interesting. This one comes from PJ. She says, I have a question for your Friday Q&A. You may have covered this in another video. I did. And if so, please direct me to which one. I will link it. She's wondering if I could talk more about the difference between medical grade and over-the-counter skincare. She's willing to invest, but she wants to know my opinion and what's worth the splurge. Okay, I made a whole video about affordable skincare, and I 100% stand by it, you guys. I got a lot of flack for that video, but I believe 100% that medical grade, the term medical grade, is a made-up term. I believe that it is a term that was made up by the cosmeceutical industry to market products to people. I really do. Now that said, if I want to go with the term medical grade because people seem to accept it for certain products, like Obagi is considered medical grade, and Osmosis and Elastin, there are a lot of products that are considered medical grade. Okay, if I want to go ahead and go with that and say, okay, those are medical grade, yeah, there are a lot of absolutely phenomenal products in the medical grade arena. Definitely. They're expensive and they have a ton of research and development behind them. They have a ton of science behind them. But you guys, there are plenty of things that are over the counter that are less expensive that also have a lot of research and development behind them and have great ingredients and would do great things for your skin. So I don't think that you have to have medical grade skincare in order to have good skin. I just don't believe that. And I think that that is a fallacy that is promoted by this big marketing machine that is the cosmeceutical industry. And again, you guys know I love osmosis. I do. I think it's phenomenal. I think the research behind it is amazing. I love Obagi, same thing. But there are plenty of things in the medical grade, arena that are crap, that are way overpriced. And then there's stuff in the over-the-counter arena that are fabulous, that have a wonderful ingredient deck that would do great things for your skin. So honestly, it comes down to the ingredients in any given product. And just because a brand says that it's medical grade doesn't mean that everything in the brand is going to be good. And just because it's sold at Walgreens doesn't mean everything in the brand is bad. So I don't buy into that stuff. I don't buy a product because it says it's medical grade. I buy a product because I researched that specific product and I like the ingredients, and the overwhelming number of ingredients in there that are good outweigh anything that might be in there that are bad, that kind of thing. And I highly recommend that you do the same. I do not believe that money is well spent because something has a certain brand name. I just don't. And I know I'm going to get flack for this because I know that there are a lot of estheticians that are probably, subscribers here. And I love that. I think that that's fantastic. And I see on my Instagram feed where I follow other people that, there's these memes that talk about, medical grade and how it's the only way to go and all this stuff. And I just don't buy into it. I don't. That doesn't mean that I don't think that there's lots of things in medical grade that are amazing. Yeah, of course there are. But I don't think that you have to be wealthy to have good skin. I just don't. So that is my little spiel on that. And I do think that if you guys want a video where it's like medical grade worth the splurge, where I give you a rundown of the medical grade stuff that I've used that I'm like, yeah, that is worth the dollars, I'll do that. And then I could do the same video for over the counter. I'd be happy to do those too. And if you guys want to know medical grade products that I have tried that are completely crap or miss the mark, I'd be happy to make that video too. Because trust me when I tell you that I have tried lots and lots of medical grade products that I was like, that was terrible for one reason or another, So it's all across the board, and I'm marketed too. I am definitely also guilty of being marketed to and getting excited about a hyped product and, that kind of thing. I'm human, that happens. But at the same time, my logical mind tells me that obviously it doesn't have to be $100 to $500 for it to work on your skin. Okay, let's move on. Sorry for the rant. Okay, so the last question that I'm going to address has to do with high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, and I want to go over it kind of briefly, but give you a nutshell as to why I recommend you guys use that when you are needling, and actually kind of use that in general in your skincare if you can. Now, it's kind of confusing when it comes to molecular weight and hyaluronic acid because the cosmetic industry touts quite a bit fragmented and low molecular weight hyaluronic acid because, and this makes sense to our brain, those smaller molecules, those cleaved, cut up molecules in our brain that we're picturing, obviously they can get in deeper and do more work and plump up our skin better and all of that kind of stuff. In our body, naturally, we have hyaluronic acid, and the natural hyaluronic acid that we have in our body is a large molecule. It is high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. That's what we have naturally. Now, when a wound happens, our body sends in something that will break down that hyaluronic acid. When that happens, those little fragments of hyaluronic acid send a signal to the body to repair the wound, but also, and they start off an inflammatory cascade, a response to repair the wound. But they also send off to the body a signal saying, hey, send in more of the normal, bigger, high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, okay? So there's this big cycle that happens. So your body sends in more of the large molecular weight hyaluronic acid, and the low molecular weight hyaluronic acid goes away, and the wound is healed, okay? So essentially with microneedling, that's what we're doing. We're wounding our skin. And there is this very perfect balance between the low molecular weight hyaluronic acid that is created when we microneedle by our body. And so that inflammatory response is started and our body can start to heal the wound of the microneedling. Well, it's not a significant wound. And we do know that in great quantities, low molecular weight hyaluronic acid is pro-inflammatory. So if it's pro-inflammatory, we all know that pro-inflammation equals pro-aging. So if you guys look at this graph, you can see that high molecular weight hyaluronic acid and low molecular weight hyaluronic acid are both moisturizing, they're both lubricating, and they both regulate wound healing. They're both good for that. Now, here's where they start to get different. High molecular weight hyaluronic acid is anti-inflammatory, whereas the low molecular weight hyaluronic acid is inflammatory. And high molecular weight hyaluronic acid causes normal collagen induction. That's the collagen that we want. The low molecular weight hyaluronic acid actually causes scar collagen. That's the collagen we don't want. Now, the other thing about the high molecular weight hyaluronic acid is that it is tumor suppressing, whereas the low molecular weight hyaluronic acid is actually tumor promoting. Clearly, that's not what we want, right? Now, our body naturally does break down that high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, that bigger molecule, and it breaks it down into a low molecular weight fragmented hyaluronic acid on purpose as part of the wound healing process. The idea about putting the high molecular weight hyaluronic acid on with microneedling is to keep that balance in check. So if we use low molecular weight hyaluronic acid topically while we're microneedling and our body is already cutting up our big molecules of hyaluronic acid to start off this wound healing process. Our body's already doing that inside when we start microneedling. And then we add more low molecular weight hyaluronic acid to the mix with a topical. We flooded the area with inflammation, with an inflammatory type of hyaluronic acid. So the body is totally thrown off and there's way too much inflammation, which in turn, in a cascading series of events, is going to cause scar collagen. It's not going to cause the kind of collagen that we want, and it's just the wrong thing for our body. I'm going to do a whole video on hyaluronic acid, but just know we really do want to stick with high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. It's a very interesting molecule and not one really to be taken lightly, especially when we are microneedling. And when you want to know, well, what is the weight of hyaluronic acid is measured in something called Daltons. Daltons are just a unit of measure, just like pounds or inches, but that a Dalton is another unit of measure. It's an atomic unit, and you can see, I'm going to put a chart up of what high, low, there's ultra low, there's many levels of hyaluronic acid. You just want the high molecular weight. And I will tell you that a lot of times it's hard to tell what molecular weight a hyaluronic acid is. So if a company actually puts high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, it fits the parameters that are on this chart. And so that's usually what I stick with. If I can find out the actual Dalton range of a molecular weight on a hyaluronic acid, that's very exciting to me because then I can pinpoint its weight. Other than that, I take a company's word for it when they say it's a high molecular weight, especially because, you guys, low molecular weight hyaluronic acid is kind of a buzzword right now because so many people think that it's actually better because they think it can penetrate better, which is true. It can penetrate better, but it's way more inflammatory. So we don't want it. We don't want it to penetrate better. We do not want inflammation. And even though we think that we see more results, inflammation and edema actually are just a recipe for long-term aging. So you don't want to see that tan today because you know down the road that equals wrinkles. Just like you don't want to see that edema and inflammation today because down the line that means wrinkles. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was kind of a sciencey one, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface on so many of these subjects, and I will definitely be doing some videos with Dr. Abraham about PRP and PRF and any of these other subjects that we touched on. If you want more in-depth review and we want to go over it a little bit more, just comment that down below. Please keep leaving your questions because that's the only way I can do this video. Hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you again very, very soon.